4.4 Equations of Parabolas. Today we're going to show that two forms of the equation of a parabola are equivalent. Our key ideas to keep in mind are the standard form of a parabola with the vertex of h, k is y equals a times the quantity of x minus h squared plus k, or x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. So remember, when x comes first, it's going to open left and right. If it's a y equals equation, it's going to open up and down, which these are the ones that we have worked with for the longest. The general form of a parabola can be written your square term followed by the linear term, then your other linear term with the other variable plus your constant. The first example says rewrite the equation of each parabola in general form. So remember, general form is when we want to expand everything out. So when we have a quantity squared, that means we have two of them, x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I'm going to distribute that out first, and when I distribute that out, x times x is x squared, negative 2x gives me negative 4x, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. That whole quantity is still multiplied by negative 3, follow our order of operations, negative 3x squared plus 12x minus 12 plus 5, combined our like terms, and we get negative 3x squared plus 12x minus 7. Looking at the next example, it is this parabola opens left to right because it's x equals. We're going to expand out y plus 7 twice. Do not distribute over addition or subtraction. Y times y is y squared plus 7y gives us a positive 14y in the center plus 49 on the end. We then need to multiply that quantity by 2 before subtracting our 10. So 2y squared plus 28y plus 98. Combined our like terms and subtract our 10, and we get x is equal to 2y squared plus 28y plus 88. The next example says rewrite the equation of this parabola in standard form and identify the vertex. So in order to write the equation in standard form, if we have y squared plus x minus 8y minus 11 equals 0, we need to complete the square. So in order to complete the square, you want to move your term that does not have a square, or move everything away from that. So if we have y squared plus x minus 8y minus 11, if we move our y by subtracting it, add our 8y and add our 11 to the other side of our equation, we will get x is equal to negative y squared plus 8y plus 11. In order to complete the square, our coefficient of our squared term has to be positive, so we need to factor out a negative 1, and we're going to move our 11 using our inverse to the opposite side before we factor out that negative 1. So we'll have y squared minus 8y plus box equals negative 11 plus box. So then we're going to complete our square by doing b divided by 2. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16, which goes in your boxes. And negative 11 plus 16 gives us 5. We then need to move our 5 back over using the inverse operation. So in the equation for our parabola, it's going to be negative 5. We now know that our center is at HK, so our center would be at negative 5, comma 4. The next example says rewrite the equation of this parabola in standard form and identify the vertex 2x for 2x squared plus 4x plus y minus 11 equals 0. So again, we want to move everything away from our y. So our y is going to remain on our left-hand side. I'm going to subtract my 2x squared. I'm going to subtract my 4x, and I'm going to add my 11. In order to complete the square, our coefficient of our squared term has to be 1 and positive, so we're going to need to factor out a 2. We're going to move the 11 to the opposite side before we do that. So when we factor out a 2, we get a negative 2, we get x squared plus 2x, plus box. In our next form, we have x, b divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Negative 11 plus 1 is 10. Negative 10. When we move that 10 back over, we get a positive 10. And we now have standard form of the we now have our parabola in vertex form. The next example says rewrite the equation of this parabola in standard form and identify the vertex. 51 over 4 minus x equals 1/4 y squared plus 1/2 y. So all these fractions look a little bit intimidating, but I promise everything's going to be all right. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to rearrange our equation so that we get our x by itself. So we need to subtract our 51 over 4. So we have 1/4 y squared plus 1/2 y minus 51 over 4. I then want to divide everything by negative 1 to make my x positive. So I have negative 1/4 y squared minus 1/2 y plus 51 over 4. Now we're set up so that we can complete the square. Remember, the coefficient of our squared term needs to be a positive 1. So we are going to factor out or divide our first two terms by negative 1/4. When we divide 1/2 or take a fourth of 1/2, it's going to equal 2. Our signs are going to change, so we have y squared plus 2y plus box is equal to, we subtract our 51/4 to the other side, negative 51 over 4 plus box. We do our b divided by 2, so 2 divided by 2 is going to give us a positive 1. 1 squared is 1, and when we write 1 over here, that's the same as saying 4 over 4, because I know in order to add fractions I have to have a common denominator. So on the right hand side, I'm going to end up with negative 47 over 4. I need to use my inverse operation and add that. And I just got the standard form of my parabola, my vertex. Notice this is your K, this is your H, outside stays the same. So my x coordinate of my vertex is 47 over 4. My y coordinate is opposite. It is a negative 1 because it's inside.